Some of you may have heard Brian Shaw, the behemoth, the absolute monster of a man, is going into MMA. Brian Shaw is the former world's strongest man. He weighs about 400 pounds, 420 pounds, something like that. We've done a video on this channel 4 weeks ago reacting to Dustin Poirier and Brian Shaw having a bit of a grapple and striking a bit. We also touched upon who would win in a street fight. I talked about how Dustin Poirier could get it done, but when you really think of it, someone that big, all they've got to do is grab hold of you. Boys, I'm always going to side with the professional fighter. I'm never going to be the one to say size matters as much as it does, because all fighters have an inflated belief in themselves, and that ties directly into the confidence. You've almost got to have that delusional confidence. But am I delusional in thinking that I could beat Bradley Martin? I actually do believe that I'm completely rational there. I'm not being delusional. So anyway, Brian Shaw dropped this video, becoming the most dangerous man on earth. It was 7 days ago. I wanted to react to it last week, but the Misfits event just took up my entire video catalogue for the last few weeks. So it's time to diversify again until the next Misfits event. If Brian Shaw's going into MMA, that's going to be very interesting. We've already had Mariusz Pudzianowski do it. I'm terrible at pronouncing names. Mariusz Pudzianowski. Okay, let's react.
So, I have been getting a ton of questions. What is next for Brian Shaw? I officially announced my retirement from the sport of strongman. It was incredible. I had a little bit of time to sit back, enjoy that moment, and think about what was going to come next for me. Obviously, as you guys know, I have showed interest in arm wrestling. I have showed interest in different feats of grip strength.
Arm wrestling, Brian Shaw, he would smash it at that.
I had no clue that I was going to be presented with an opportunity to get into MMA fighting. So this kind of came out of the blue, out of left field, something I was not expecting at all. And initially, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I didn't put a lot of weight into it. I thought it was something that wasn't real, and it did get my attention because there is a contract involved. But then I started thinking about it. I started thinking about,
wonder who this would be with, maybe the PFL.
What would I gain from doing this? And I did want to drop weight, so I was gonna change up my training anyway. This is something that will force me to do that. And in turn, I also get to learn. I get to go back to being a beginner. I get to go back to being coached and being stimulated in that way. Instead of just trying to change the training in the gym, I also now get to go and take lessons and learn new things, which is very mentally stimulating for me. I have always loved the challenge of having to do that.
He said a few things there. Bringing his body weight down is a big thing. Eddie Hall spoke about it, the fact that he had to add on so much mass to be able to do that 500 kilogram deadlift. He knows he's taken years off his life. When you weigh 400 pounds, you are shaving years off your life. People think that it's only obesity that's bad for you. No, it's the extreme of any end of the spectrum. So if you are extremely skinny, anorexic, then you are shaving years off your life. If you are extremely overweight, obese, you're shaving years off your life. If you are extremely muscular, and also Brian Shaw's got a lot of body fat on him too, then you're shaving years off your life. So this is a good move by Brian.
Or at least in the back of my head, I thought, well, how would I do, right? And the weight cutoff was always 265 pounds. So that was unrealistic for me. It was something that I was not going to be able to do. So I really didn't think that the opportunity was going to come. This opportunity is an open weight class. So I'm not going to have to worry about cutting down or making a weight. It's something where I just get to walk in, work on all of my skills, and come in and bang, ultimately. So that excited me as well. So it's something complete.
I think Brian Shaw would struggle to get below 300 pounds because he's 6'8". Like, you just look at his frame as well. His shoulders are so wide. Obviously, he's got a lot of body fat on him. He could lose a lot of muscle and get his weight down, but I think he'd struggle. In order for Brian Shaw to be under 300 pounds or to hit a 270 pound weight limit, he would have to be shredded. He would have to be bodybuilding stage lean.
And I think that this will be a really good way for me to transition out of strongman and not kind of have that fall off or that low. You know, it's something where I'm certainly content and very, very happy with my strongman career, but also having a challenge in front of me, I'm not going to lie, it's been very exciting. It's something that I've now been able to do for a few weeks at this point. And, you know, I've got a great team, great people here in Colorado.
I want to touch upon something he said there about transitioning out of strongman and having something to focus on and having a purpose. Dorian Yates spoke about this in the past. He said that a lot of bodybuilders, and I know Brian Shaw's not a bodybuilder, but it's a similar niche. A lot of bodybuilders struggle coming out of bodybuilding because that that's their entire life for so long. It becomes their identity. It's the same with fighters. They fight for 10, 15 years. Think about a career. That's only a short time window. And then they come out and they've got no identity. They've got no other skills. So the fact that Brian Shaw's thinking about, right, how am I going to transition out of strongman successfully? Because this has been my entire identity for the better part of 15, 20 years. MMA is a really good transition because at the core of who he is, he's an athlete. And we talk about these strongmen being slow and stiff and sluggish. He still have to be relatively fit. I said it in the last video where he's grappling Dustin Poirier. He wouldn't gas out as easy as you'd think if you just think of the nature of a lot of strongman events. They're very endurance intensive. It's good to hear him talk about this.
All right, guys, so I'm heading into high altitude martial arts, meeting with Cody Donovan, who will be one of my main coaches heading into.
See, now let's just take a look at him. He's still got a lot of body fat on him. He's an absolute monster of a man, but if you look at his face, look how much body fat he has even on his head. You know you're big when you've got a fat head. You've got 20% body fat on your head. You know, he's got a bit of a belly in that, which is required for strongman. So he's got the weight to strip there, but I still don't think he's making anything below 300 pounds.
To this fight, learning a lot, man, and every day is an experience. So we're going to see what we're going to get into today and have some fun.
He's bigger than the door. Right, let's watch his punches. Now, a common thing that I've just noticed, a common thing that you see when people haven't really thrown punches before is they have the guard like that. It's very much like this. They punch very ploddy and the elbows are out. It's like a tricep extension, but obviously because they've never needed to throw a punch before.
Now you're
Okay, we can see here, let's just turn this down a little bit. We can see Brian Shaw's got a decent understanding of footwork. He's stepping with the jab. That's good. He's keeping his hands up. Like, look at his footwork here. Pretty good for the guy who weighs 400 pounds. Let's just slow it down. I've got it on 1.2 speed. Probably looks faster than he really is. Doing you some favours there, Brian. Now watch his feet. Good. I know we're only looking at a second there, but the fact that he's stepping in and then he moves laterally, pivots a little bit. He's very light on his toes for someone of 400 pounds.
That was it, that slide.
Okay, so he's learning some wrestling there. Imagine Brian Shaw hanging on you like this. I mean, that'd be so easy for him to take you down. If you think about it as well, he'll do all this striking, but I guarantee, I'm going to make an early prediction now, if Brian Shaw has an MMA fight, I think he'll throw some sloppy punches, and then he'll just get as close to the person as possible, take them down, lie on top of them, because he's just too heavy, and just throw some sloppy punches in the face, and then they'll quit by ground and pound. I'm making the early prediction now, so when he has the fight, whether it's in a year or 2 years, I'm going to come back to this video, and I'm going to clip this moment.
That was it, that slide.
I mean, imagine that on your skull. Just 400 pounds coming down through your elbow. Hiya! Also, just going back to that point I just made about the fact that he'll probably just do some sloppy ground and pounds. It takes so long to develop good, smooth striking, to also get used to being punched. And you also lose that if you don't do it for a while. So I know when I go back to kickboxing, eventually, I'm going to get a punch in the face and I'm going to be a little bit twitchy. When you first go back, you overreact a little bit to punches that after a few weeks of being back in the game and being back in the rhythm, you don't really have. You don't have that overreaction. But when you've never done it before, you will struggle to take punches. You will struggle to be fluid and you'll struggle to remember your technique and for your technique to really be second nature when you're in that firefight. So that's why I'm predicting sloppy ground and pound.
Okay, push that head bit close and that ground. Yeah, you read my
I now with Vinny Lopez, who will be one of my coaches. He coaches some of the best MMA fighters in the world. So excited to get in here and get to work.
Go, push, go, push, yes, push. Oh, yes. Throw it, finish.
I'm pretty impressed. His jab is quite good, and that's going to be the key. He's got long arms, and he's got that reach. I mean, who are you going to find who's going to be 300 pounds, 6'8" in MMA? No one. They're going to be very low skilled. So whoever Brian goes in to face, he's not going to be facing a world-class athlete. So he only really needs to develop some decent little fundamentals. It's good. What are we seeing? He's getting a good full extension. Apart from there, this is just a drill. But that cross looks really good. I said his jab looks good. What I meant is his cross. I thought it was his jab. And he's keeping his left hand by his chin. He's actually keeping his head tucked, his chin tucked down on his chest. This is really good, solid technique from Brian here. This isn't his first training session. This is probably a good few training sessions in, maybe a few weeks or even a few months in. That's good as well. Now, the only thing he's doing there a bit, he's falling into the jab. So he's stepping, but he's kind of falling into it. If it was to demo it, he's a little bit instead of boom, boom. But that'll come with time. Of course, he's not going to be perfect. I'm just giving you a little bit of a visual. Now, don't look at those punches and think, oh, he can't punch there. It's just a drill to get his coordination. I wouldn't look into that section too much.
Oh, yes. When you throw it, make sure you pull left shoulder back, okay? Still throw it nice and easy, but there. Yep. Oh, yes. Imagine hitting somebody with that bad boy.
Even with such terrible technique, it's still scary, isn't it? Quick little point I was saying about his guard being like this, flared out. I actually think that's just because he's so big. I don't even think it's possible for him to tuck his arms in like this because of his lats. His lats actually flare his arms out. He's going to have to try and atrophy his back muscles and his chest muscles significantly just so he can get his guard tighter in. Yes. Right, let's watch this heavy bag work.
Hitting somebody with that bad boy.
Right, jab, cross, keep the hands up, left hand up. Jab, cross, take down. That's going to be Brian's bread and butter right there to win. Fake the strikes, go for the takedown, clinch up, take them down, ground and pound. It's going to take too long to get good on the feet. Yeah, so this is just general coordination work right now. This is just getting him used to throwing punches, getting his fitness and his conditioning up a little bit. He will, over time, tighten this technique up.
Pull that left hip. So he would give me a little more hip. Boom.
There you go.
You can get this guy throwing his right hip at me. Okay. Bro, that's all of you. That's all 400 pounds coming through somebody's face, bro. Sure. I don't care who you are. You might die. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. You might you might die if you throw that the right way, dude. I don't know. So we're up on the toe and then
he said, turn your hip. That's 400 pounds coming through that punch. I don't care who you are. If you take that in your face, you might die. You can't debate it.
Oh, yeah. And then I've got Lauren Landau here in Colorado, who's a strength and conditioning coach for the Denver Broncos.
Oh, do you know what? I just got a little sense of happiness there. I'm excited for Brian with this, you know, because obviously it's a spectacle. He's not going to be super technical in that. And like, you know, he's a 400-pound guy. But the fact that he's reached the pinnacle of one sport and now he's going complete white belt mentality to another sport, it honestly takes a lot of balls to do that, you know, because when you are constantly seen as the best at something, you have to have no ego and completely humble yourself to then go somewhere else and be a beginner and accept that you look silly. That's why I'm not hating on Brian whatsoever in this video. It's truly tip the hat to him because it does take a lot of balls. And then to document it in front of 500,000 people seeing this video, people probably, I guarantee if you go on those comments, look at Brian's punches, there'll be people in the comments, there always is. But you gotta give respect to him. This will all be hard for Brian. Plank as well, a 400-pound plank. All coordination drills. Static holds. He'll be good at that. He's used to doing that with a plane and buses and trains. Never mind a 40-kilo prowler. Oh, job. This will absolutely drop the weight off Brian. How much he's sweating.
Joe Ken helping out with the strength and conditioning side as well. So building out my team it has been really, really fun, and I'm learning a lot of different things with all of those pieces. It has completely got me out of my element. Some of these things that I'm doing right now are things that I have not done, and I've lived in the weight room. I was always a student in the sport of strongman, and that was something that was very important to me throughout my career. I think it served me very well. I was always willing to learn. I was always willing to try new things and kind of jump in and figure out ways to problem solve within the sport of strongman, and it's something that I did very, very well there. So if I can transition over to MMA, keep that same mentality where I'm learning, I'm practicing, I'm trying to reinforce what I have learned, get better at it, get more technical with it, these types of things. I think this is going to be really, really exciting. Now, I will approach this just like I have approached anything else in my life. So you put this in front of me, you give me a deadline, you give me an MMA match, I am going in to win. And I'm not just going in to win, I'm going in to dominate. So I feel as though you could put anybody in front of me, big guy, whatever, and I'm gonna figure out a way to make this happen. And I think a lot of people out there are very excited to see something like this. Maybe once this video goes out, people will get even more excited to see something like this.
I think he will do quite good at this because that mindset, that champion mindset, is transferable into other sports. If you take a world-class fighter and put them in a different sport, they have the mindset to succeed. There's certain underlying principles of how we think that can guarantee us success in different areas of life. So I think Brian Shaw going into MMA, that's dangerous. It's a dangerous game, but it's exciting. It's getting me excited. Oh, I can't wait to start training again. I can't wait. But he's a big guy. Who would he fight? Now, will he compete in the UFC? Well, obviously not, because the heavyweight division only goes up to 266 pounds. Also, I've just thought, let's say he did go into the UFC and he could somehow magically make the 266 pound weight limit, or they even opened up a new division for him. I even think the lowest ranked heavyweight fighters in the UFC would destroy Brian Shaw, even if Brian had 2, 3, maybe even 4 years of training. Brian Shaw's 41 years old. He's not getting any younger. Now, heavyweights tend to be a little bit older, but let's say Brian Shaw, in order to get good, needs a good 3 years of training. That puts him at 44 years old. Going into an organization like the UFC is not going to end good. He needs to go into one of these lower tier organizations, maybe the PFL. I know they're on the come up right now, although it's not looking good for them because they're dumping absolute millions into the organization and getting nothing back. No one's buying the pay-per-views, and they would certainly look for a spectacle type fight like this. I'm actually really made up for Brian Shaw, and it's something that I'm looking forward to watching him progress with. I actually think he'll do good, but I'll be on the sidelines rooting for Brian. And if you want to stay up to date with this, make sure you subscribe to this channel. We cover fighting, fitness, internet stuff, and anything that crosses over in the middle. Like this video, and I'll see you all tomorrow